This is TechVibe Pittsburgh. It is your front row seat to Pittsburgh's technology and innovation ecosystem. I'm your host, Jonathan Kersting, telling the stories of Pittsburgh's technology ecosystem for nearly 30 years now. Are you ready to discover how cutting-edge data centers and cybersecurity are reshaping the future of technology right before your eyes? In a world where AI, power infrastructure, and digital security are colliding at breakneck speeds, this episode of TechVibe reveals the critical insights businesses and tech professionals need to stay ahead of the curve. Today, I am very excited to welcome Darrin, Gull, and Jonathan Cox of C3 Complete, along with Lenny, Chesal of I Am Critical. And if you keep on listening, you're going to uncover the symbiotic relationship between data centers and emerging AI technologies, get a front row seat as to how Pittsburgh is becoming a pivotal hub for technological innovation in this area, and get some expert perspectives on the cybersecurity trends and ecosystem collaborations that are all leading us forward. So keep on listening now to unlock the strategic roadmap for navigating the complex landscape of next generation technology and cybersecurity. So let's welcome Darrin, Lenny, and Jonathan to the show. What I'm really excited about is we have a little slice of Florida hanging out with us here in Pittsburgh.
Yeah, we brought the hurricane last
I
night.
think you did. Yeah, if you're listening to this now, last night we had quite the storm, and I'm blaming you guys for it right now.
So it wasn't here yet. Don't blame me.
You're off the hook, Lenny. Simple as that. But seriously, what I'm excited about is I love it when we have our members who are bulk of their business in another state, but they see Pittsburgh as a place they want to do business, which is why you guys are members of the Tech Council, because there's such opportunity here. And so first off, what is the interest in Pittsburgh? First, with I Am putting your data center here, was really cool. That was like, 3 years ago?
It was. Yep.
And we just love seeing that kind of investment happening here in Pittsburgh. And then C3 joined up with the Tech Council a while ago because you're hanging out with I Am. So let's start with C3. What do you see here in Pittsburgh that has you excited? And of course, you're part of Cyberg this year, which is really cool. So
yeah, I think the biggest excitement of Pittsburgh is it is an emerging technology city.
Okay.
I mean, I love how you guys have adopted. I have ties to Pittsburgh. My wife is from Pittsburgh.
Oh,
so
cool.
I've definitely spent my time up here. Her master's was at Pitts. So definitely some fond memories of times up here in Pittsburgh.
Great.
And just Carnegie Mellon here, they're cutting edge. The stuff that's coming out in the cyber resilience world is just fantastic. So it's just it's the place to be.
Yeah, I love hearing you guys. And so how long has C3 been working with I Am for? You got this Florida thing going on.
So the answer is when we bought the Miami data center, October of 21, we bought it in October of 21. C3 was already embedded in the data center. They had their footprint.
Very cool.
Their data center.
Okay.
But it so happens not only my long relationship with Darrin, but Rick Mancinelli, the CEO, and I go back many years.
Gotcha.
We were talking on the way here about how Pittsburgh is so Midwest and so lovely and such a great place.
Keep talking, man. We like the way you talk. Keep going.
It really is. It's such a welcoming town. And in South Florida, it's a little different pace, as you probably know or might well imagine. But we come here and it's so welcoming, and we're a bit of a throwback in our relationship because we're built on relationship, right? So that works really well for us. And it's all about working together. And so coming up here together, establishing the C3 brand inside of the I Am brand here is just a perfect match.
I love it.
Expand our business, expand their business.
Cool. So for our listeners, I think they would love to know. So how is C3 working with I Am? I think this really probably explains some of the key things that C3 does. And
they do what we don't do, right? So it's hand in glove, if you will.
Right. Yeah.
Right. So if you look at us at using OSI model for those of us that are blowing up, so we're at that physical layer, right? So we've got fiber coming into a physical building. We're providing all the infrastructure in the data center and the co-location space, primarily focusing on HPC. So all of these AI, high performance compute, generative AI, all this wonderful stuff that we'll probably get into needs a data center. It's got to have a home. It's got to have enough power. It's got to have enough connectivity.
That's one thing I love. I think when people take it for granted when they're doing their prompts and they're just living their daily lives, whether they're getting an email, whatever that may be, is that this happens because there's a center with servers that is receiving power. It's a thing. I never take it for granted when I turn my computer on.
And the funny thing is, my stuff's in the cloud. Yes, we call it the cloud. So whether you move your stuff from your servers in the data center or onto your managed service providers in the case of C3,
Exactly.
or into one of the big or whatever medium-sized cloud providers, it's still in a data center.
Absolutely.
Right? So at the core, at that foundational level, we're the foundation of all of
Gotcha.
that.
Yeah.
At the layers above that, so the cybersecurity, the servers from either a purchase or a lease or using the C3 cloud, they leverage our data center. And
Gotcha.
so they also run our network operations center, security operations center within the Miami facility. That's a 100,000 square foot building. And they've got a beautiful security operations center there.
Yes,
absolutely. It's really world class.
Yeah, we're bringing that forward, and we love the opportunities that we're getting with the relationship, and also satisfying the internal operational side too.
As a provider, it's really symbiotic. If there's ever a bit of symbiotic relationship.
It's very symbiotic, and we make things happen together in ways that the world needs right now.
For sure.
Because of the mass scale in which we're having to adapt to change so quickly. And that's just reality. We're all faced with it. And I don't care what sector you're in. You are rethinking your world right now.
Yeah.
And at I Am Critical and at C3 Complete, we've absolutely seen that vision. Our CEO, Rick Mancelli, had a great vision with Lenny and the team over there. And so I came in the picture about a year and a half ago and have just really been amazed at what we're doing as a team with this reach into the marketplace and catching hold of the future of what's coming and being prepared for it and embracing it. So it's not that it's coming, it's here.
No,
we're seeing it.
Yeah.
We're feeling it. We're doing business from it. And up here in Pittsburgh, there's just opportunity because of the history of this wonderful city.
Yeah.
And all of the great education that happens in this place, and the skills that are here are going to be innovative. And you want to be where innovation is going to be happening.
But that
I think the word research really
Research
jumps in.
research is huge for us. We are built on a lot of research here. That's for sure. So I would love to know, like, as anyone who's listening, your Pittsburgh base, and is there a particular vertical that you play well in? Is there what size of company, any industry types? If they're out there listening saying, hey, I need to learn more about C3 or what's going on with IAM, like how can they determine if it's a good fit?
Darrin, you want to jump in for a minute?
Yeah.
Sure. So C3 Complete, we don't turn anybody away, obviously, but our target is that 50 plus company.
Perfect. Yes.
That they're looking for solutions that they may not have. We also work a lot with local MSPs in the markets we're in. And what we do, again, is we help them in areas they may not be strong and help them to have a more complete portfolio. So it's really about finding need, creating need. Verticals, we're big in the healthcare, legal, which there's plenty of that up in here, financial, the fintech, we're really big in the fintech world. So that's any place that has compliancy challenges, that's where we can step in and really help people. There, as Jonathan said, there are more jobs available than there are people to fill them in the VCSO world.
Oh, yeah.
We can be that for companies. So you pay a fraction of the cost of what it'd be to bring someone in on staff, and you get a team behind you as opposed to one man. And we all know that it's not a one-man job when it comes to cybersecurity. And that's why the term now cyber resilience is because it's not if, it's when, and what's your plan. And that's what C3 does.
I love it.
Man or woman. Not one man or woman.
You're right.
Woman.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Or woman.
Yes, for sure.
As a dad of 2 daughters, I should be more careful.
It's
all good.
I will tell you, and maybe you'll appreciate this because you know how much we do in the community. I signed something because of my middle daughter. It's called the Gender Avenger Pledge.
Okay.
Gender Avenger Pledge.
The Gender Avenger Pledge.
Cool.
The Gender Avenger Pledge states that I will neither serve on a panel or moderate a panel be on stage without a female on the stage. And I had signed that many years ago.
Good way to roll, man.
I've held true to that.
That's cool.
Yeah,
absolutely.
A great way to roll for sure. So let's talk about some trends. We're on the eve of Cyberg here. It's one of our biggest cybersecurity event here in Pittsburgh. And JC, you're speaking of this thing, which I think is really cool. And so let's talk about first, what do you be talking about here? And because this is going to play right into what's hot, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So again, the hot topic that's going to be discussed this week is definitely going to be focused on what are the emerging challenges and what are the trends that are happening out there with cybersecurity. And the panel got together last week in prep, and man, we were just talking. But usually you get ready for a presentation, and it's like, what's your background, what's your accolades, this, that, but no, we just dove right in. It was like, you can tell this industry is hot and hungry.
Should have recorded it. We could just play.
I'm serious. It could have been a podcast. It was so awesome. Give my hats off to all the panelists that are going to be there with me because they're just amazing people in their own right with their own skill sets.
So I love putting this event on because when you get brains together that are so smart, working on the same things, but looking at it in different angles, we start finding new things. So that's why I think it's so important we do these things because it brings these best practices to a lot of people.
Yes. And when you see that synergy, you want to be a part of it.
Totally.
That's the best part of what I see happening in the industry again is that
we went through the cycles of the introduction of cloud, and that was awesome. Look, cloud was amazing when it came out.
Did many magazine coverage of cloud, yes.
It's like Moore's Law. It's like everything. You go from the brick and mortar data center in-house or at a facility. We went to this cloud concept, which kind of pulled us a little away from that brick and mortar thought logic of redundancy and resiliency with our operations. And then in full circle, as we found new tech that's driving the industry, now we're swinging back to where we have to have the resources to launch the next thing.
I mean, we call it the repatriation. Workloads from the cloud back to the data center.
Interesting. So we're seeing it that it gets building on itself, right?
Absolutely, yes.
Snowballing.
Because some of those promises is, okay, we're going to save money, we're going to have more control, we'll be able to control the environment, and the sprawl that took place and continues to take place completely out of control.
Yes.
Now, the funny thing about sprawl relative to the cloud is in the world of LLMs,
yes,
you're getting the same things. Oh, the marketing department has their LLM. And I heard Williams-Sonoma, I think is the company, has 400 LLMs in their environment.
Right.
And who built them and where they are and who's controlling them.
Where the guardrails
who's doing the governance.
That's
right. So anyway, it's just interesting the swing, right? That's the whole...
The pendulum swinging back in a direction where demand is just screaming for it. And it's exciting to see and be a part of. And I think one of the things, like when we take on new technology, such as the LLMs, is that there's a lot of new challenges that get introduced too at the same time. We get so excited and we embrace technology sometimes faster than we're prepared to handle some of the outcomes from it, because the benefits are so amazingly looking, and experience with them are such great improvements and empowerment that we experience in our daily lives. And then compliance and other aspects of security and risk have to catch up with it. And so we're moving into a new era with the introduction of these LLMs that has a challenge. I've seen it there for about 8 years. And what it comes into...
Wait, back up. I love when you say you've been seeing this for 8 years, because I think most of us have heard LLM for maybe the past like 18 months.
I say we couldn't spell LLM.
Exactly. Being kind of a forward visionary guy in my own practice and experience in life, I was watching Watson from IBM several years back.
For sure.
In the healthcare market. Mm-hmm. And I saw the challenges that were being introduced, and they reeled it forward and then they reeled it back for people that followed along with that. And one of the things that I kept questioning with the introduction of AI into the industry, and I discussed with a lot of different groups, including IBM Security and with the Linux Foundations and a couple of groups, and I just said, there's a thought pattern here and we need to solve this as we get into AI. And what it comes down to is that in the compliance world of risk, you've got confidentiality, integrity, and availability. We've got confidentiality, okay. Availability, we're there, but it's integrity. Okay. So now that we're introducing these LLMs, the real question is we need confidentiality tagged to be able to control it and manage it. Now, I'm not saying we got to big brother it to death, but in certain aspects, in certain industry, we need this.
Oh, 100%. 100%.
And the best part about it is we have the tech, we just got to merge it.
That's the hard part, man. Yeah.
And blockchain can allow us to do an efficient tagging ability on all inquiries coming in and out.
I didn't think about that. Yeah, using blockchain in that regard. Yes. Oh, wow.
And so I've had this thought and been putting it out there. If I had an infinite amount of money, I'd be dumping it myself. But I did put some test models together, and it's definitely attainable at scale and could be very powerful to allow our industry to really solve some big challenges that we're trying to figure out.
Provide that verification.
As a world.
Yeah, no, exactly. Yeah, that's...
And a use case scenario that I brought up that I think makes a lot of sense or resonates is, think about it this way. You've got a room, I'm just going to go to the development world for a minute. You've got a room of developers, and they're all in their programming. They're using their AI and hammering away. How do I know if one developer didn't hear another developer talking about something at lunch he was going to do and then goes and does it? How do I know who the original thought?
The blockchain can help with that.
The blockchain tag on that
show
interaction,
exactly where it originated
show you where it really originated from.
That's what I'm talking about.
Right now,
this is the first time
I've
ever had anyone talk to me about it, with using blockchain as a way to verify where the data comes from or came from in order to
And that's just
prove.
the beginning.
And that's just the beginning.
That is like the seed of the mustard tree, if you want to call it that.
I truly feel like we're living in a very historic moment. I feel like this is even more, I've seen more important, but bigger than when the internet kind of came out. But
If you look at Moore's Law, if you look at that, right, the spike is way more significant.
Yes.
I had that conversation come up too, probably about a year ago. I started really getting hit with that question. They're like, how do you compare the introduction of the LLMs and the AI as far as changing the world, or how big is this going to be? And I said, the only thing I can compare it to is the introduction of power, modern power.
Right. Yeah.
Because it's got the same characteristics. When power was introduced, everybody was afraid of it. They thought it was going to kill it. And in some cases it would. But at the end of the day, it was more fear. You get the fear mongering around innovation.
Of course.
And of course that happens in any technology that you introduce into the world. But as far as the reaching impact of everybody's lives, I think that's the closest parallel that I could find.
Yeah.
It's funny you say parallel.
So
in my mind, I'm thinking parallel, which is LLM. So we always think ChatGPT, we think all the public domain, but the real work that's being done and the compliancy work and the governance work is really in private LLMs, right? And so that's a whole different world. And so you can air gap to a great extent those private LLMs and handle some of those privacy concerns as long as the infrastructure is built in such a way that you're truly air gapped as opposed to virtually air gapped, if you will.
And that's where there's all this new risk management that's evolving so quick. And
I have no idea how anyone can even stay nearly on top of that.
Read, and then your brain explodes at the end of the day.
But then it changes again, so you got to read again, which is mind-blowing. Just slightly switching gears as we're talking about all of this and the compute power that it takes and the amount of servers it takes for this to happen. This is where I want to hear from Lenny a little bit about the future of the data center.
Oh my gosh.
I feel like every house is going to have a data center tacked onto the back. It's
So I have a prospect I'm working with on one project, and then he writes me on another project. He says, okay, we're funding that one still, but now I'm doing consulting for this one.
Yeah.
And this one, we're going to try to future-proof the infrastructure. So they know I know how to build my own, but they're bringing me in. I'm like, what are they trying to build? We're going to do the GB 200s and 300s from NVIDIA, which are basically 120 kW per cabinet, water chilled. We're doing some work with a company called Celsius. This is NVIDIA's, and these GB 200s and 300s are 50 times what the existing GPUs are performing at.
Yeah.
Now the 120 kW per cabinet. So you're talking about, let's just call 2 feet wide by 4 feet deep. So you're talking 8 to 10 square feet, and then you got to put some space around that. The traditional cabinet in a co-location in a data center was maybe 5 kW. And now you're talking about 120 kW and the same square footage.
And exact.
So then I read
density.
I read On-Ramp, the future of data centers, powering the AI revolution. And of course, you've got entire sections here on power.
So squeeze,
and we're in
27 racks into one rack.
That is correct.
Right.
27
so I call it 25
racks.
I call it 25.
27 racks into one rack of power consumption now.
So if you had a 100,000 square foot data center and you were powering it for 5 kW, you now need to do, and that's just for IT load.
Yes, that's not production.
That's not running all data centers. So if you think about, again, this hockey stick we're talking about,
it's insane.
And everything that goes along with that.
So this explains why Microsoft is trying to put 3 Mile Island back online, because
there's a picture here of 3 Mile Island, and I look at that, and that would be for maybe 1 or 2 data centers.
1 or 2 hyperscale centers.
And I think before we started, we were talking about the amount of the world's power that are being used. And you had a statistic on just, I don't know what region you're talking about.
It was Virginia, where 26% of their power output goes just to the data centers. Yeah. And according to our sources, within 2 years, Virginia is not going to have enough power. They're running out of power. That's scary.
Which is just unheard of. But it's reality.
But it's reality where we're at because of the compute power that it takes.
So just think about this. One of the things that's interesting in the compliance world is typically with compliance frameworks, they've been introduced over probably 30 years, and they typically don't change a lot other than get updated for some of the current tech. One that's going to come back online is electrical grid compliance. I think it's NERC, if I'm correct on that one, but you're going to be looking at now, as we're bringing more and more new technology into the electrical grid as we build it out, compliance is going to be huge on that, because what's going to be the number one resource is going to be attacked.
That becomes a prime target at that point.
Numero one, but for 2 reasons. One, it's new technology, so it's more likely to have flaws as it's being introduced.
Exactly.
And two, it's going to be scaling at hyper demand, and it's just a target.
You can't control it's just a big, massive target.
And you can understand why, what other side of the spectrum you're on from the politics world. I don't want to go in deep detail there, but the reality is you can see why we want to bring it back home.
Exactly. Yeah. We got to keep this close.
And it's important.
Yeah. It's
important for our survivability and for the protection of the intellectual property that we're going to put into this.
100%.
And it has to be physical too. So if you look at
the cost factor.
Speaking of bad weather, so National Weather Service, NOAA, has a new supercomputer. They've hired IM data centers where we build modular data centers to build a modular data center for their new supercomputer. That's above that 120 kW. That's all direct-to-chip cooling. That's all supercomputer stuff. So this whole world of building data centers for the application instead of building a data center and then waiting for the application. So now we're flipping that
around where like literally there's
what do you need? Right, exactly.
Yeah. So from the sales side, this becomes a whole crazy world then. What do you see?
It is. It's the Wild West right now. So it's trying to figure out how it all fits together and how it all ties together and getting the right people in place. As JC mentioned, the power was the revolution, but now the new revolution of AI is demanding the power to keep up. So that's really how it all ties together. And then obviously there's bad actors where there's great opportunity. There's great opportunity for ill will as well. So it's trying to keep that in place. And from the sales side, it's finding the right people with the right knowledge to deliver the solutions that are needed to keep up. I feel like it's not a matter of getting ahead right now. It's just keeping up. And many companies, went to a doctor's office even 5 years ago and it was paper records and filing cabinets full of your personal information out there. But now this is all digitized. We were talking on the other night about how your social security number used to be your student ID. So if
your badge in front of you,
it was on the wall. Everybody's social security numbers or student ID is how their tests went, and just how things evolve and change. And now we're putting this all online. And how do we protect this? And how do we protect each other without a police state? We don't want a police state, but we want to protect data. So it's the sales opportunities are huge, and it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when.
Yeah.
And so that's why that resilience of having the right people in place to come in and solve a problem.
Yeah.
And I'm going to take that resilience one more step up. I'm going to say we're having to re-embrace our ecosystems. So our ecosystems, in other terms, and this is what was very attractive to me about being with C3 Complete is that, as the name says, it's complete. So we're completing an ecosystem. We're focusing on augmentation roles for other MSPs in the marketplace that are trying to evolve quickly but can't find resources fast enough.
And you can plug it in.
Or special teams.
Yes.
Okay? Put us in. Do your thing. So is the brand. We don't need the accolades. We just want to see you get across the finish line.
Is that how you were wearing a beret when you came in?
Pretty cool.
Okay.
Right? Yeah, but I think at the end of the day, it's really understanding that as a community, we need to embrace a new mindset in the MSP community around the ecosystem.
And it's funny because the work we're doing together is total ecosystem. We're going through our compliance now, certifications, and so we're leveraging C3 and JC and the team on some of our compliancy work. Right. But we need that compliancy work for their clients. And so everything's full circle.
It's full
a perfect example. But
exactly.
Perfect example.
Yeah. I just love this. This is just, I think there's so much to talk about. We can never get through it all, but I feel like what we've covered today has just blown my mind. My big takeaway is it's like security, AI, energy, all these really big fields have to come together. Because as we have all this AI happening, we got to make sure that there's safety so they get security in. In order for the AI to run, you got to have the power and you got to have the data center. So it's like all these these worlds are now merging. So when you're selling it out there, man,
we're to create the United Nations out there. We're trying to bring everybody together with a common vision of cyber resilience. And as Jonathan said, we're not here for egos. We're here to solve problems.
We're wearing really cool berets. Yes, exactly.
A friend of mine says democratizing AI.
Yes. Yeah, no, it's just so cool. And what I love seeing is how you guys have worked together, how IM and C3, how C3 really lives up to its name. It's completing the ecosystem for IM. And IM's here in Pittsburgh with a really cool modular data center right in my old backyard of my neighborhood, which I freaking love. And the way I can tell is there's going to be a lot more data centers being built.
We got room for two more, just like the one you're looking at.
Exactly. Can you stack them?
No, but I mean, at that point, again, because of the construction and design, we can reach great Density.
And density is where it's at right
And
now.
it's all about density.
And rumor has it, according to TD Cowen, Pittsburgh is the #1 place for speed to market when it comes to building data centers right now because of our access to power, because of the land that we have.
Yep.
We got some magic going on. There's still a lot of red tape we got to think about, but Pittsburgh is nicely positioned when it comes to being a place for data centers. For this stuff to happen and to have
Thanks
energy
for
power.
having
No,
us.
Jonathan, it's been great.
your Florida vibes are like really cool. So I'm all about it. Thank you so much. Really great conversation. I have learned so much today. I'm thinking blockchain now, man. Simple as that. JC.
There's a lot of stuff to take home.
Absolutely.
We'll come back.
Your open door policy here. Whenever you're in Pittsburgh, come on over to the Hunting Bank Studios. We will talk about what you guys are up to because it is fun stuff. I can't thank you enough. Oh my goodness, so much fun. Love doing this, bringing you these conversations as often as we can. In case you forgot, this is Jonathan Kersting. I'm with the Pittsburgh Technology Council. Go to pghtech.org and check us all out there.